Yo, what's happening, guys? It's GM Cody back with another video this week. I hope you guys are enjoying the new year. Happy New Year. So far, so good for me. I hope it is for you as well. And to start off the new year, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite war games of all time. Yes, another war game. We're not talking about a role-playing game this week. We're talking about the classic Squad Leader by Avalon Hill. This came out in 1977, at least my version did. And this is probably one of my favorite World War II games, war games of all time. So a little bit of backstory here. So I kind of grew up playing a lot of these Avalon Hill bookcase games. Most notably with my dad, which I've talked about it a little bit in the past, but he played a lot of these games when he was a teenager, and so when I got into gaming, we bought some of these games and we played them too. We played games like Gettysburg and Jutland and Wooden Ships and Iron Men, and some other games too. We did not play Squad Leader back then. Squad Leader is something I discovered much later on when I got back into wargaming. I started looking at a lot of these old games, and Squad Leader is one that got mentioned a lot, and eventually I picked it up at a convention and started playing it, and immediately fell in love with it. So Squad Leader was created by the late great John Hill, who was a very prolific games designer. He wrote quite a few war games. And most notably, he also wrote one of my favorite sets of historical miniature rules, which is Johnny Reb. Now, this is Johnny Reb 2. And this is definitely my favorite set of American Civil War miniatures rules. And I absolutely love this game. But we're not talking about Johnny Reb tonight, but maybe sometime in the future we will. But tonight we're talking about his other classic and favorite of a lot of people, which is Squad Leader. Now, what Squad Leader is, it is a squad level, as you can imagine by the name, World War II war game. It is not a miniatures game. You play it on a hex board with cardboard chits, and of course tables, and six-sided dice. And I'm going to bring up Tabletop Simulator here in a little bit so we can actually look at the board and look at all that stuff. Now, John Hill was really good. The reason I like John Hill's games, specifically Squad Leader and Johnny Reb, is because he was really good at capturing the feel and flavor of a specific period of history and still making it playable and really fun and engaging. So Squad Leader definitely has that tactical feel of squad-based combat in World War II. It feels like all the decisions you make really feel like real-life decisions in a World War II atmosphere. Same with Johnny Reb with the American Civil War. It feels very much like you're commanding a brigade in the American Civil War, right? And this is no exception. So we're going to bring up Tabletop Simulator. We're going to talk a little bit about this game. And it should be noted, too, that this game is not in print anymore, sadly. I wish it was. But Advanced Squad Leader is still in print. Now, Advanced Squad Leader was basically built off the original game. There was two other supplements, I believe, that were made for this, which I do not own. One is Crescendo of Doom, and I can't remember what the other one is, but essentially what they did is add in more rules, more factions, more vehicles, and more scenarios for you to play. And increasingly the game got more and more complicated as these supplemental box sets came out for the original Squad Leader, and eventually that was all compiled together and expanded and made into Advanced Squad Leader. And Advanced Squad Leader is a much more complex game, though it is a very good game too. I very much enjoy Advanced Squad Leader 2 and have the opportunity to play it. I do have some of the starter sets, though I've never played like a full-on game of Advanced Squad Leader. But it is a very rad game in itself, and maybe one day we'll take a look at Advanced Squad Leader. But tonight, we're taking a look at the original Squad Leader. And like I said, this game is out of print, sadly, but it is not too difficult to get your hands on one. It is a pretty commonplace game to find. You can find it all over the place secondhand, and ranges anywhere from about $30 to $50 depending on which version you get, and whether it's what the shape of the condition of the game is and whatnot. So it's not too hard to obtain like some games are. But anyways, let's bring up Tabletop Simulator here, and we'll talk a little bit about this game. So, like I was saying, Squad Leader is a squad-level World War II game. And each of these chits here represent a squad of soldiers, right? Now, in that, you have stats on those counters there. And what those stats represent, let me, I'm opening up my rule book here for a reference. And then we're going to zoom in back on these squad counters here. What these represent is squads. The first number is firepower, the second number is range, and the third number is their morale. So there's only 3 factions represented in the original game. You have the Germans, the Russians, and the Americans. And then you have quite a few scenarios to play. So here's this is the the most classic scenario that everybody's played if they've played Squad Leader, which is the first scenario, which is the guards counterattack. And I have to say it might be my favorite scenario out of here. Only because I've played it so much, maybe. But each of these scenarios will tell you how many squads you get, what kind of weapons you get. They're leaders for the squads, platoons, I suppose you could say. And what kind of weapons and things, and special rules for the scenario, as well as how many turns you're going to play, and what the victory conditions are, and how many boards you're going to use. Now, the game comes with 4 boards, but you don't necessarily use all 4 boards every time you play. In fact, the guards counterattack only uses one of these boards, and I think it only uses half a board. And so it'll tell you, what board to use. Says, let's see here, which one does this say? Only shaded half a board is used, rows A through P inclusive, which means you would use, I think, this board here, and you're only going to use rows A through P, so the board would actually stop right here, right on this line here where this counter is. And every scenario is different. You also have your leaders. So here's a German leader here, and the leaders have a morale number and a leadership number. So their morale number is just like the morale for squads. They have to test for morale too, and if a unit fails their morale, of course they become broken and can't do anything until they're rallied, and this is their broken morale. But leaders can also affect the squads that they're attached to, and that number next to there is their leadership value, which gives a modifier to their shooting and to their leadership tests. You also have support weapons, and the most common types are going to be machine guns, of course, and you can see here we've got tons of German light machine guns. But there's also medium machine guns, heavy machine guns. You have flamethrowers. You have demolition satchels. You have anti-tank weapons like bazookas or Panzerfaust. And you have all kinds of stuff that is at your disposal for support weapons. But we'll look at like the most common support weapons. So the most common support weapon would be a machine gun, and a squad would carry one of these guns. A light machine gun can also be carried and operated by a leader as well. Medium machine guns, I can't remember off the top of my head if they can or not. So basically what these do is they add to your firepower. And you also, of course, you have firepower, you have range, and you also have a breakdown number. If you roll that breakdown number, the gun becomes jammed or is out of ammo or what have you, and you have to roll to repair the weapon. And the cool thing about the support weapons is your enemies can pick these things up too. So if this squad was here and it got wiped out and it left that weapon there, that weapon could be picked up by one of your other squads or possibly by one of the enemy squads as well. So that's a very, very cool feature with the support weapons. And of course, a lot of the other support weapons have other characteristics that we won't go too heavy into. I'm not really going to give... this isn't really a tutorial of the game. I just kind of want to give you an idea what this game's all about. So you also have vehicles, and I'm just going to pull out some random German vehicles here. So here's some Stugs. And, you know, so you have movement rates. Let me see if I can remember here. You have movement rates. You have your machine gun factors, which your movement rate is up here in the top right corner. Your machine gun factor is down here. And then your this is your main gun type, which you would use when you're firing your main gun. And the vehicle rules aren't too complicated. The rules in general aren't too complicated. But they are very, very... they're very cool. So this is the way the game works. And here's the reference sheet. So the way the game works is, first off, you have the rally phase. So if you have any broken units, you have to roll to rally. Prep fire phase. So the active players on broken units may fire during this phase. Units that fire may not move in the next movement phase. So what this is the covering fire, because the prep fire phase comes before the movement phase. And so what you want to do is say you're going to move some units across into this building. And let's just lay some units out here, like so, and you got, you know, your machine guns and stuff. What the preparatory phase is really simulating is covering fire or support fire that you're laying down before you go out moving in the open, right? Is really what it's kind of simulating here. And so you would mark whatever units you want to do prep fire. And then what you do next is you take 2 six-sided dice. You would add, well, first you would add up all your combat modifiers. You would go to this chart over here. You would add up whatever modifiers you have. If you moved or if you're shooting into cover. Let me see, yeah, here's the modifiers right here. And all that good stuff. And then you would add up your combat. You would see what your total firepower is, which is up here at the very top. And then you would roll 2 dice and consult the chart. And you would come up with either an M, which is a morale check. Number, which is a morale check minus that number. Or K, killed in action, KIA. Which means the unit would just be completely wiped out, and any other units with it as well. So it can be a very deadly game as well. It's not completely realistic, but the tactics is really what shines here in Squad Leader. And the tactics really do feel like squad-based World War II tactics. What else to talk about? So, you know, vehicle firing works sort of in the same way, but a little differently. You're actually looking for a number to hit, and whatever kind of gun, whatever you're shooting at. If you're shooting at a vehicle, you would roll to hit that vehicle with some modifiers, and you're looking for you have a certain target number you're looking for based on your firepower and range. And then you would consult the kill table to see, and you would need you would come up with a certain kill number that you need to destroy that vehicle. Otherwise, the armor penetrating round or Panzerfaust or whatever round just bounces off the vehicle. Of course, there's Americans in this game too, which we've just been looking at Germans and whatnot, but here's the American units. And you can see that all the units are a little bit different than other units. It's also worth noting there's all kinds of stuff you can do in this game. There's artillery strikes. You can lay down smoke. There's mines. There's you can have barricades and bunkers. There's satchels and flamethrowers and all kinds of stuff and all kinds of things. And the game, the cool thing about the game is as you're playing through the scenarios, it gets, as you would imagine, it gets more and more complicated and adds on more and more layers. So you can see this scenario 1 is pretty easy, right? There's nothing too crazy going on here. You have all the basic things that you would have in a squad leader scenario. You have squads, and you have leaders, and you have machine guns, and that's it. But now if we go to the second scenario, the tractor works. It's Germans and Russians again in Stalingrad. Now you have hidden movement. You have smoke. You've got demolition charges. You've got flamethrowers. So it introduces a few more rules to you. The game is longer. It's a little bit bigger. And yeah, so, we go to the next scenario. Scenario 3 is the streets of Stalingrad, and this is a all-vehicle scenario. So there's no infantry squads in this scenario. You're just playing with vehicles, and it kind of introduces you to the vehicle rules. And then you go to the next scenario, and it's the hodgepodge of Pepsic. And so this is this doesn't look too much more complicated than scenario 3, really. Which I'm surprised they didn't throw in some vehicles in this scenario. Scenario 5, here we go. This is Hill 621, and this is where they introduce the Americans. And each faction does have their own unique special rule, which I can't remember. I can't remember all of them at the start, off the top of my head, what all the special rules are for the factions. It's been a while since I've played. But I know, like, the Russians they can go berserk. And the Americans have their own thing, and the Germans have their own little thing. It's nothing too crazy, and it's just one little rule that every faction has. So you can see this scenario is a little bit more involved here. We've got armored fighting vehicles and trucks and jeeps and tanks. We've got a anti-tank gun here. We've got a couple anti-tank guns. We've got some Panzerfaust. We've got flamethrowers and demolition charges. We even have radios where the Germans can call in artillery strikes. Let's look at the next one. Scenario 6. This is escape from Luki or something. And this one looks pretty basic. This doesn't look too crazy. Scenario 7. This is a much more involved scenario, and it's Germans and Russians again. I think this is, again, another Stalingrad scenario. It uses 2 maps. So it says map sections 3 and 4. And you've got a lot more involved here. You've got vehicles and tons of squads and all kinds of stuff. And, each of these scenarios has their own random game length, the maps to use and whatnot. The other cool part is, and we'll look at it briefly, is you can make up your own scenarios, and it gives guidelines at the back of the book. It also gives guidelines about basic tactics and stuff. And honestly, this game, you really need to kind of master the tactics. The rules aren't that complicated in the original Squad Leader, but mastering the tactics is really where it comes into. And I remember playing this the first couple times, just getting my ass kicked because I didn't understand the tactics. But once I got the tactics down, it got better and better. So design your own random. This is designing random scenarios, and it's pretty cool actually. You use a card deck to randomly select units and victory conditions, and then you would generate a certain amount of units based on whatever cards you draw. And I've played quite a few games solo this way, and it's really, really fun to randomly generate scenarios. They also have a campaign system in here, so you can do your own little campaign. And so you can also do point values, and they have point values if you just want to make up your own little force on force and just throw down. So needless to say, this box is really, really jam-packed with lots of fun and good stuff. So I'm going to swap back to the camera view here. And so, yeah, that was just my brief introduction, if you will, to Squad Leader. Not a very long video at all. It's just maybe in the future I'll actually like do a breakdown and show you guys actually how to play the original Squad Leader, because I think it's a game that's it's remembered fondly by people from the 70s, guys from the 70s and 80s, but it's kind of forgotten now. And I don't think it should be forgotten, because I think it's a very, very good World War II combat game. And like I said, I think it's my favorite World War II war game out of any other board or miniatures game I've played. And so it's well worth taking a look at. And again, maybe I'll do a demonstration. Maybe I'll get an opponent on Tabletop Simulator and we can actually play a game of Squad Leader. But I think it's very much worth your time to take a look at Squad Leader. Hopefully this piqued your interest. Hopefully this is something you guys are interested in. If it is, maybe we'll talk about some more of these old Avalon Hill games, or some more old war games made by like SPI or whatever. But hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I'm gonna cut it off there. So y'all have a good night. Well, I should say what's coming up pretty soon. So of course tomorrow is Tuesday, and tomorrow I'll be playing Bear's Star Trek game. Of course, there's been lots of Palladium talk and action going on, and I will be covering some more Palladium stuff in the future. Me and Bear did a Palladium Fantasy character creation tutorial. Make sure to go check that out. It was a lot of fun doing that with Bear, and I think people that are new to Palladium, maybe it would be helpful for you in creating any kind of Palladium character, but especially a Palladium Fantasy character. And also, I'll be playing in a Palladium Fantasy game with Bear once a month. I think we're going to start on the 20th. We'll see about that. And I am also considering running my own Palladium game, possibly Rifts. Haven't made a decision yet. I haven't made a decision about who I want to invite to that, or how often I want to do it, or even if I really have time to do it. That's the main thing I've been considering, is time. And if I did do it, I'd probably only do it once a month. But anyways, hope you guys have a good night. We'll see you next time. Keep it real. Keep it old school. Peace.